Inside the Magic, show number 362 from March 11th, 2012. It is Sunday, March 11th, 2012. This is show 362 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I'm your host, Ricky Briganti. We do have another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get started with all of that, I invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. That is our website, and there you will find all of our podcasts as well as videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, anything you want to tell me about, you can always write to me at ricky@insidethemagic.net. That's the email address, as well as you can call and leave a message on our voicemail line at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Find out why Adventures by Disney has been announced as the world's leading luxury tour operator. Plan your adventure today if it's in North America, South America, maybe Europe, or a more exotic locale like China or Egypt. Whatever the destination is, Adventures by Disney is ready to take you there, and you can book that vacation by calling Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387, or you can visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And also brought to you by audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download as well as a 30-day trial for their service. Access to over 85,000 titles, audiobooks, all over at audibletrial.com/Inside the Magic. And of course, thanks very much to listeners and viewers like you, and like this week, Vincent Schneider and Martha Hattery. Thanks very much for becoming the newest monthly recurring donation subscribers, and thanks to everybody who already subscribes and clicks through the affiliate links on the website and all that good stuff. It definitely goes to support the show. In fact, I just bought some new equipment earlier today that we'll be using soon, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, thanks very much, and now let's get started with our trip around the world. So welcome everybody to another show. It is show 362. I don't mention this probably enough here on the show as I'm recording, particularly not at the top of the show. Every Sunday when I record these shows over at InsideTheMagic.net/live, I've got a live video stream during the recording, and the video version of the show also includes video clips as well as pictures as I'm going through the news and plenty more. And of course, you can chat as well. So for any of you who are in the chat room right now, obviously you know all of this, but for those of you watching later or listening later, Sunday afternoons, usually 2, 3, 4 p.m. or so Eastern time. No specific set time, but usually right around that time is when we're doing the live show. So I invite you to tune in at that time. The best way to find out exactly when it's going to happen would be to just follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and I usually post a couple hours ahead of time when it's going to be time for it all. So again, that's all over at InsideTheMagic.net/live. And with that said, let's jump into this week's Disney news. We're going to start outside of the theme parks first thing this week with some news from D23, because this week they did announce the D23 Expo 2013. It's the next big expo to be held at the Anaheim Convention Center. The dates for that next D23 Expo will be August 9th through 11th. For, of course, 2013. They made it very clear that one of the biggest complaints last time, of course, was the overcrowding and very long lines to get into presentations. A lot of people were turned away. And so in announcing the 2013 D23 Expo, Disney did say they are going to be addressing those issues with, quote, expanded capacities, as they put it, for the presentation. So they declined to elaborate on exactly what that was going to mean, but clearly they have heard everybody and will be trying to make it a better experience for everybody wanting to get into those presentations. part of the D23 Expo for 2013, will indeed once again be the Disney Legends ceremony. In addition, there will be a new Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives exhibit, which was one of the more popular things back at last year's D23 Expo. Tickets for the 2013 D23 Expo will be available at d23expo.com beginning August 9th of this year, 2012, so 1 year in advance. Still a year and a half away from the actual event itself, but you can start planning ahead, well ahead. In addition, let's see, a few more details about the Expo. D23 members will receive early admission once again to the show floor. Charter members will get a special lounge, and the Sorcerer package will be returning once again as well, with some receiving other benefits and amenities. So stay tuned for all the details. Disney and D23 have promised much more coming for the D23 Expo 2013 in the coming months and weeks as we get closer to the date. So far in the show, at the top of the show, you heard a little bit of There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. You just heard Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins. Now you are hearing, a bit of the Enchanted Tiki Room, and there's one theme to all of these songs and the next few that you'll be hearing in the background as well. They're all tunes from the Sherman Brothers. Of course, the Sherman Brothers are synonymous with some of the most catchy and beloved songs in Disney history, and unfortunately, this week, really sad news. Robert Sherman, one of the two Sherman brothers, died this week at 86 years old. Of course, he was responsible, along with his brother Richard Sherman, in creating classic songs like It's a Small World, Chim Chim Cheree, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, the ones that I've just mentioned, and many more. In fact, more than 200 songs at Disney were written by the pair, Richard and Robert Sherman. Robert had lived in London, England since about 2002. Most recently, even though he was overseas, he still continued to work with his brother. Most recently for Disney, they wrote Make Way for Tomorrow Today for the movie Iron Man 2, which was a very Carousel of Progress type song. And back on March 11th, 2010, Disneyland honored both Richard and Robert Sherman with a window on Main Street, USA. That was a great ceremony. You should, if you have not seen the ceremony that Disney honored the Sherman Brothers with for their Main Street window, you definitely need to head on over to InsideTheMagic.net and check that out, because it was a wonderful tribute to both of them. This week, when the unfortunate news came about that Robert had indeed passed away, his son Jeffrey Sherman on his Facebook page wrote, "Forever his songs and his genius will bring hope, joy, and love to this small world." So it's a horrible loss to the Disney community. Robert Sherman, truly a Disney legend, and we'll be continuing to play a few more of the Sherman Brothers songs here in the background as I go through the news as a tribute to his legacy. Of course, Richard Sherman is still around, and Richard Sherman is the one of the two who has been making more appearances at Disney events and around the U.S. In the recent years. Robert, as I said, has been overseas and not appearing in person so much, but certainly still a very important part of this songwriting duo, and the world of Disney will not be the same without him. And along the same notes there, I just want to put in a word that I joined Waltcast, another Disney podcast, a few nights ago to help celebrate the life and legacy of Robert Sherman. So if you want to listen to that separate podcast, you can tune into episode 134 of Waltcast. You can find it over at waltcastonline.com. All right, moving on from there, of course, recently we had the unfortunate news that another talented musician, Davy Jones, a former monkey and regular to the Epcot Flower and Garden Festival, recently passed away as well. Well, this week Disney confirmed who would be replacing Davy Jones to be playing at the Flower Power Concert Series coming up on May 18th through 20th over at Epcot during the Flower and Garden Festival, and it's going to be none other than former monkey Mickey Dolenz is stepping in. That should prove to be a rather emotional set of concerts. I imagine a lot of Davy Jones fans and Monkees fans will be coming out to Epcot to see Mickey Dolenz perform, and it's really great that he has kind of stepped up and really decided to join in. Of course, it's not the first time he will have been there. He's been at the Flower Power Concert Series before, just not in recent years, but that should definitely be a concert that any Davy Jones fans should not miss. So let's move on to some happier news, where we're actually going to jump out to California, to the Disneyland Resort, where there's some big news coming out of the parks out there, specifically from Disney California Adventure, where just this week, a few days ago, in a construction tour visit to the ongoing improvements over at California Adventure, Disney President and CEO Bob Iger was there, as was Walt Disney Parks and Resorts Chairman Tom Staggs, to check on the progress of Cars Land and everything else under construction. And it was announced shortly thereafter the official grand opening date for Cars Land and Buena Vista Street will indeed be June 15th of this year. So just over, let's see, we're in March, April, May, June. So just over 3 months from now is when it is all going to be opening. That was the rumor date, and it seems to have come true. What's most interesting, however, and something that everybody interested in going out to the opening of Cars Land and Buena Vista Street should note, is that on June 14th, Disney California Adventure, the entire theme park, will be closed to the general public. That is the day they're going to be holding their big unveiling special event, a media preview, and VIP party throughout that entire day throughout the park. So if you're planning a trip to go out to Disneyland Resort for the June 15th opening of Cars Land and Buena Vista Street, and really the completion of that 5-year renovation project of the park, count on June 14th, Disney California Adventure being completely closed to the public. So with the announcement, Disney did also show off a lot of sights from the ongoing improvements and expansion of Disney California Adventure. Starting over in Cars Land, Disney offered the world a first look of at Radiator Springs Racers, really the cars going around the track, moving side by side, and just driving around through the canyons and everything that has been created from the world of cars. And I must say, it really looks spectacular, especially seeing the sort of different facial expressions that are featured on the multicolored ride vehicles that are, of course, themed to the world of cars, and seeing it all go through the outdoor twists and turns, through the really impressive rock work that Disney has put together for this attraction. Seems like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. It, of course, is an e-ticket attraction, very similar ride system to Test Track, but it's going to be a much more elaborate sort of dark ride experience, and, of course, it has that side-by-side racing as well. In addition, Disney also finally unveiled more than just artwork for the red car trolleys that'll be going up and down Buena Vista Street. It offered, Disney gave the first look at the cars, these red cars going up and down the street and running over near the Tower of Terror as well, which is going to be the other side of the red car trolley track. They also offered a look sort of behind the construction walls of Buena Vista Street, which is still very much under construction. That's going to be the new whole entrance way, sort of Main Street USA style, but with a completely different theme to bring guests into the park. Definitely very much under construction, but it'll be great once that opens June 15th to see all of the sort of 1920s, 1930s era Hollywood-inspired or California-inspired decor and performances and everything. I'm really looking forward to it. Also, as I've mentioned previously, June 15th will also be the reopening date for the Matterhorn bobsleds over at Disneyland Park. So they are, as I had speculated, sort of tying it all together. Not only is the Matterhorn reopening, but all of the improvements completing the $1 billion plus renovation project of Disney California Adventure after so many years of construction there. Continuing with some Disneyland news here, just this week was one of the most talked about Disney D23 events, Disneyland Off the Map. That event a few weeks ago had sold out in a mere few seconds. It sold out so quickly online, and now it became evident, now that the event has taken place, as to why it sold out so quickly. There were only around 70 people in attendance, and that was as many as Disney took on. And of course, they took those who were lucky enough to get tickets to this event into a ride on the Lily Bell train car on the railroad, up into the Dream Suite above Pirates of the Caribbean, into Walt's apartment above the firehouse in Town Square, and then it culminated with a dinner in Club 33 in New Orleans Square. So really an excellent event. Fortunately, those who were there said D23 did say they are planning on rerunning the event again in the future at some point, but there will be a price increase. Apparently, it was already an expensive event, over a couple $100s, but apparently it's going to get even more expensive because clearly Disney has seen that it was a very, very popular event, and that I'm sure many, many others would be looking forward to going to it. Let's jump out here to Walt Disney World, where this week the rules have, well, I don't want to say changed, but they're now being enforced for Fastpass tickets. Again, out here at Walt Disney World, there's a time window when you grab a Fastpass to go to a ride. They, of course, say, return between 5 and 6 p.m. And previously, Disney would kind of ignore that 6 p.m. part and let you come back anytime during the day after your ticket has begun. But now, Walt Disney World is indeed enforcing the complete ticket window there. It means you have to arrive back at the attraction during the window stated on your Fastpass ticket. Of course, there will be exceptions if a ride goes down or if there's other, circumstances out of your control that prevent you from getting there. But for the most part, it will be enforced. Disney, to make it very clear to guests not familiar with this practice, have added signs throughout Walt Disney World Resort on the Fastpass machines reading that you must return or please return within the 2-hour window, or the 1-hour window, printed on your Fastpass ticket. In addition, on the daily time and information guide that comes with park maps at the parks, there's a special line on there that reads, quote, "To ensure you have the best experience possible, please remember to return to Fastpass attractions within your return time window," printed on Fastpass tickets, end quote. And also on the Fastpass tickets themselves, it now includes the phrase, quote, "not able to accommodate late arrivals." Now, for me personally, I don't really find a big deal about this because I always or almost always return during that Fastpass window anyway. I mean, you figure Space Mountain tells you to come back at 4 o'clock. Why wait? You might as well come back at 4 o'clock. No point in waiting until later. Yeah, I can understand there are, other scheduling issues. If there's a parade, if there's this, if there's that, well, you may just not want to grab the Fastpass in the first place if it conflicts with something you already have. Most interesting note about all of this is, so why is Disney doing this? Why have they begun to enforce this rule that they have never really enforced in the past, specifically, again, at Walt Disney World? Well, just over a year ago, February 2011, at a Disney Investors Conference, Disney Parks and Resorts Chairman Tom Staggs confirmed that Disney is indeed working on a system in which you'll be able to make ride reservations for specific times from outside the parks, before your trip, at home, etc. Staggs at the conference said, quote, "We are currently developing an innovative system that will, in essence, create a version of Fastpass for their entire Disney vacations. Now we define the guest experience as beginning from the time a potential guest sits down at the computer or picks up a phone to make a reservation. They'll be able to create a personalized itinerary that gives them the exact Disney vacation they want," end quote. And this seems to be one of the major reasons why Disney sort of needs to take control of their Fastpass system now, make sure the guests are returning exactly when they know they're going to be returning and when these tickets say they'll be returning, so they can see and get a feel for how many guests are using it and how, the guest flow and numbers and everything for all the attractions in order to be able to book this new system as well. Now, here's the footnote to all of this. I wrote about this Fastpass rule enforcement change over on InsideTheMagic.net this week, and when I wrote about it, my story got picked up by USA Today, and they quoted me. From there, Fox News quoted my article as well, and it spread from there to Yahoo and many, many local news outlets around the country, which I think is fantastic. I'm really happy to have my article and my quotes spreading all over the country. However, unfortunately, many of the outlets got it a bit wrong, and this is what I want to clarify here. I specifically wrote that Walt Disney World was enforcing these rules now, this 1-hour window. I did not say Disneyland was. Unfortunately, a lot of outlets have trouble making the distinction between Walt Disney World and Disneyland. Obviously, one is in Florida, one is in California. They're very different theme parks, different resorts, different everything, different parts of the country even. Unfortunately, as far as many media outlets are concerned, they're the same thing, which is not true. So just to clear it up, Disneyland in California is not yet enforcing this 1-hour window. Of course, you still have to return at the beginning of your Fastpass time, but they still have that leniency at the end where you can return any time later in the day. It's only Walt Disney World at this time that is enforcing it. Of course, that could change, but that's how it is right now. Speaking of bad headlines, Habit Heroes is something we've talked about recently, where Disney, under the pressure of groups complaining about this Habit Heroes exhibit at Interventions at Epcot, giving sort of a hard time to overweight children. Disney closed the exhibit to sort of retool it, which, by the way, apparently it had reopened in another soft opening today. I don't know the details of that yet because it was just very recently, and I'm obviously recording the show not over at Epcot. But regardless of that, here's another case of headlines spreading far without the truth. I just saw a headline about Habit Heroes earlier today come across my news feed that said, this was their headline. This was some other, I don't even remember what the website was, but their headline was, "How Disney Can Fix Its New Ride. Stop Making Fat Kids the Villains." Well, that's a pretty sensational headline for this story because, well, it's not a ride. It's an exhibit in Intervention. So right there, the headline is wrong. And then, of course, it's using some buzzwords in there to really attract attention. And this is really just an issue that is, unfortunately, so rampant amongst websites and blogs and even, unfortunately, newspapers and traditional media, television news, etc. It'd be nice if all of those outlets could really stick to the facts about what Disney is and is not doing and what is really there instead of just jumping to conclusions. So that is the end of my rant on that. Let's move to something happier now, where actually we'll continue out here at Walt Disney World, where this week over at the Magic Kingdom, Walt Disney Imagineering released a first look inside the Be Our Guest restaurant, part of the new Fantasyland expansion. They've previously released concept art, of course, when they first announced it quite a while ago, but this week we actually got to peek inside the construction of the Be Our Guest restaurant, taking a look at the main ballroom dining room, along with further peek at the massive mural that they've been painting over at Disney's Hollywood Studios and are now installing over at the Magic Kingdom. It really looks like it's going to be one impressive dining experience. Of course, the Be Our Guest restaurant is themed to Beauty and the Beast, of course, Be Our Guest, and it will feature multiple dining rooms, and within those dining room experiences will be different themed rooms, and it'll actually be counter service during the day and table service at night, and the mural outside the windows is really looking fantastic. It's going to be this wonderful sort of scenic, great landscape outside that'll really immerse guests into the experience. Of course, all of that is not open yet. It's very much still under construction. It will be opening sometime later this year. Disney has not announced a date yet. Sticking with the Magic Kingdom and the topic of new Fantasyland, it seems like Storybook Circus is going to be opening in part very, very soon. Disney had previously said that it would be opening in part by the end of this month, and construction walls, at least some of them, have come down around the Fantasyland train station and other parts of Storybook Circus, offering a bit of a peek inside from a distance. It's not open and available to guests quite yet. Seems like it'll be another week or two before that happens. There's definitely a new look to it. It's not Toontown anymore. Storybook Circus has a very highly detailed look. It seems like very much less cartoony. Less cartoony is what I'm trying to say than Toontown was. A lot of sort of all those bright flat colors are gone, a more weathered look, an old circus look, if you will. One of the items that has been spotted by those who have zoomed in with their cameras was something called the Wheel of Peril, which looks like a great sort of sideshow act photo op alongside of the goofy, Great Goofini themed Barnstormer roller coaster now. So it does seem like Storybook Circus at Disney has really done a nice job with adding the details in there, and we'll have to wait another week or two, probably, maybe a few days, who knows, sometime this month when it reopens, at least in part, once again, not the whole Storybook Circus, but part of it, and we'll enjoy the new sights, the beginnings of new Fantasyland. But something that did just debut at Walt Disney World just a couple of days ago are the new Royal Guest Rooms. They are now available over at Disney's Port Orleans Riverside. In fact, it's pretty much all the rooms there. 512 rooms have been reimagined at Port Orleans Riverside, and these rooms have a distinctly, royal feel, but a very fairy tale feel to them as well. There's beds with crystals and gold accents and magical fiber optic fireworks effects on the headboards. Themes inside these royal guest rooms include Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and the Princess and the Frog. I've posted a video over at InsideTheMagic.net if you want to see a tour of what these newly rethemed rooms look like. They start at $189 per night, and I've got two favorite features that are part of these rooms. They're both from Aladdin. Over on the sinks, the main spigot of the faucet actually looks like the genie's magic lamp, which is a great detail. And then on the carpet, right in front of the TV, it looks like Aladdin's magic carpet, which is another really, really nice touch. And of course, those rooms are available for booking now over at Disney's Port Orleans Riverside at Walt Disney World. Sticking with Walt Disney World now, something's being tested to help guests make their way around the resort. New Walt Disney World buses are capable of holding up to 112 passengers. They're going to be are being tested right now on higher volume routes, around Walt Disney World, and they'll be tested through mid-April, at which point Disney will decide if they want to keep them or not. They're not Disney buses yet. They're just they're basically testing them at this point. It's not Disney-owned buses, so you're not going to, if you see these weird buses, they're actually articulated buses, which means there's sort of a front part and a back part, and they can sort of swivel on the middle of the bus, and we will see if those do roll out as part of the Walt Disney World bus fleet once the testing ends next month. Let's hop back out to California now, where there's a special event coming up that's certainly Disney-related, though not an official Disney event. The group over at 8 Pen Publishing are basically celebrating the life of Disney legend Bob Gurr. Bob Gurr is responsible for so many iconic Disney transportation designs in the past, from the Doom Buggy to the monorail and well beyond, and they're basically celebrating his life because, number one, he's 81 years old, and he's not going to be around forever. Of course, he is still very much in high spirits and good health, which is wonderful, but they want to make sure that they have a nice party for him just while he is still around, and because he's got a new book called Design Just for Fun, so they're celebrating that as well. It's going to be a cocktail party with some hors d'oeuvres, not a dinner event, but anyway, you can head on over to apepenpublishing.com if you want to attend this Bob Gurr party with Bob Gurr as well, and that's going to be held on May 19th. Let's jump to the Disney Cruise Line now, where, of course, last week we were talking about the Disney Fantasy cruise ship, the new cruise ship up in New York, where it had its christening. Well, now the Disney Fantasy has made its way down here to Florida, over to Port Canaveral, which is its home port. That's where it'll be sailing out of, and it made its way here in a big way, arriving with fireworks and characters and lots of fans in attendance. Of course, all of this was in preparation for its upcoming maiden voyage just a couple of weeks from now, or a few weeks from now, on March 31st. Prior to that, there will be some preview sailings as well, and I received my own information about the upcoming preview cruise, the inaugural magical preview cruise, as they're calling it. Apparently, I will be staying on Deck 8 of the Disney Fantasy. No wraparound balcony this time like I had on the Disney Dream for their media cruise then, but it'll still be a deluxe veranda stateroom, which is fantastic. I look forward to bringing you all of the visuals and reports from on board that. In fact, I also got my actual itinerary for the Disney Fantasy as well. On March 23rd, I'll be getting on the ship about halfway through the day, spending the rest of the day at sea as well as the next day at sea. Then on March 25th, we'll be at Castaway Cay for half a day, and then we'll be coming back on March 26th, and we'll be back in the morning then. And since that is the case with my trip on the Fantasy, that means that Sunday, March 25th, there won't be an episode of Inside the Magic because obviously I will be out on a boat. On a ship elsewhere. So the show will probably come maybe a couple of days later, so just make note of that. Let's turn to the world of movies now, where actually this one relates directly to Walt Disney World as well. Disney Nature's newest film, their newest true life adventure at that, is called Chimpanzee. And Disney's going to be holding the world premiere, the big red carpet event for this film at the Walt Disney World Resort. It's going to take place on April 13th, just over a month from now. It'll be at the AMC Downtown Disney beginning at 11 a.m. The directors of the film will be there, along with Dr. Jane Goodall, and then the movie officially hits theaters everywhere across the United States on April 20th, of course, 2012. Here's a fun auction for you Marvel fans out there. Profiles in History is a big auction company. We talked to their president a few months ago here on the show, Joe Maddalena, great guy. Well, now they are offering some Marvel entertainment offerings. Yes, they're offering offerings. Anyway, Captain America, the First Avenger, is the topic of this particular auction coming up at the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo, C2E2 as it's called. There are actually going to be 220 plus lots filled with costumes, props, and vehicles from this film, along with some other Marvel items as well. There's going to be a hero costume of Captain America himself. That's expected to fetch $20,000 to $30,000. Which is certainly a big price, but certainly a rare item as well. Not often you can get a hold of items from such a new film. So head on over to Profiles in History's website to find out more. If you remember a few months ago, I guess, maybe even longer, Disney had announced sort of a partnership with the check-in website Goala, and you could check in and earn little badges for checking in around Disney's parks, etc. Well, Goala is no more. Just yesterday, the Goala website shut down officially. They'd been acquired by Facebook a few months ago, and it kind of went downhill from there. So, Foursquare certainly still out there. No official partnership with Disney there yet, but it seems like that should have been the company that Disney went with. Back to the world of movies now, where this week, just a couple of days ago, Disney's John Carter finally hit theaters after months and months and months of confusing marketing, and this weekend it's done okay. It hasn't done great, but it hasn't done as poorly as many had thought it would. It's estimated this weekend to bring around $30 million, a little more than $30 million in the U.S., with another $70 or so million overseas, for a total of just over $100 million worldwide for opening weekend. Not a huge number, especially given that there was around a $250 million budget plus marketing for this film, but not a total disaster either, and word of mouth has been very strong. And I am finally going to be offering my review of John Carter a little bit later in this week's show, and then you can decide, if you haven't already, if you want to see it. However, number one at the box office this week was The Lorax at $39 million estimated, and it's in its second week, so not a great sign that John Carter opened at number 2. But this week, a first look at an upcoming Disney film was revealed, and a lot of mixed reactions to this first look. It is for The Lone Ranger, featuring Johnny Depp as Tonto and Armie Hammer as the title role of The Lone Ranger. It's coming from Jerry Bruckheimer and Gore Verbinski, who, of course, teamed up with Johnny Depp in the past for the Pirates of the Caribbean series. Next is The Lone Ranger. Definitely an interesting look for Tonto. Many are comparing it to Jack Sparrow because Johnny Depp has long hair and sort of this wrap headband thing, but he's also wearing a crow on his head, which is odd. So it's intriguing, to say the least. The Lone Ranger will be hitting theaters in May of 2013. And in other Disney movies, we've previously mentioned that Angelina Jolie apparently is going to be playing Maleficent in a live-action movie called Maleficent, basically a retelling of Sleeping Beauty from Maleficent's perspective. And it seems this week that the actress Elle Fanning is in talks to be Princess Aurora in this Maleficent film. That is not confirmed yet, but that seems to be a lead candidate for that role for now. A movie I'm really looking forward to is Tim Burton's Frankenweenie, the upcoming 3D black and white stop-motion film, and a trailer recently showed up online for it. Really looks fantastic, and this week, just a couple of days ago, if not yesterday, it was announced that Frankenweenie will be released in IMAX 3D, which is very peculiar. It's the very first time a black and white film will be in IMAX 3D. It's also the first time a stop-motion film will be in IMAX, really at all, actually. That's going to be coming out on October 5th of this year, and I'm not sure that I will see it in IMAX. I'm not a big fan of the IMAX format anyway. It has to be a really big, massive, sort of Avatar-sized movie to be that. I don't know how well stop motion and black and white is going to come off in 3D and IMAX, but, it could be one of those things that works out. I don't know. I'll probably just see it in a regular theater, but I am definitely looking forward to it. We previously mentioned that Disney had a partnership that they announced with YouTube to develop an official Disney channel on YouTube to show off original content and some episodes from the past and whatever else Disney wanted to put on there. And it seems like that partnership is coming together now, finally, months later, where this week the new Disney YouTube channel launched, featuring full-length episodes from the Disney Channel or the Disney original series, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, The Proud Family, and Hannah Montana. Right now, there's about 67 episodes up on the YouTube channel, but there should be much, much more coming in the future. And sticking with movies, here's something that's really interesting, is getting a lot of buzz since it basically emerged last night. It is not an official Disney thing, but a lot of people are saying that it should be. There's a movie poster out there for a movie directed by Ron Howard called Walt, starring Ryan Gosling as Walt. Now, all of that doesn't exist. There is no movie called Walt. Ron Howard is not doing it, and Ryan Gosling is not either. However, this really excellently drawn or created poster from an artist, a French artist, certainly is believable, and it's making its way around the internet. A lot of people think it is a real poster for a real upcoming movie. It unfortunately is not, but it kind of makes you think, when is somebody going to do a movie about Walt Disney and his life, and not, and just sort of the movie equivalent, I guess, of the Walt Disney Family Museum. And this poster certainly would be an excellent representation of what one could look like if such a movie existed. Anyway, I'm sure if you haven't seen the poster already, you probably will in the upcoming days, because it is certainly making its way around online. And earlier, I had mentioned last February, Tom Staggs at the Investors Conference had been talking about Fastpass and the future of Fastpass, etc. Well, the board of directors of the Walt Disney Company will be meeting once again in just a couple of days from now. Tuesday, March 13th, will be the annual shareholders meeting. It's going to be at the Westin Crown Center in Kansas City, Missouri, beginning at 10 a.m. Local time. So I will certainly be tuning in then. Usually that's streamed online, live audio. I'll be tuning in and seeing if anything interesting gets announced, or if it's just another meeting. Usually there's some sort of little tidbit of information that comes out during those meetings. Should be fun. So I'll be follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. If anything breaks, anything new, then we'll definitely tell you about it. And finally, we have TV listings from Kirby over at bartlett-sloan.net/TV on the Travel Channel. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., March 12th morning, will be Best Places I've Ever Been, Disney Memories. Sounds like a fun show. And then if you want to know more about the Sherman brothers, of course, with the passing of Robert Sherman this week, tomorrow at 2:20 p.m. on the Stars Kids and Family Network will be a showing of The Boys, the Sherman brothers story, which is a really excellent, if not, it's the best way to know all about the Sherman brothers. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. And that's it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip is the second in a series of 3 weeks of Disney cruise tips leading up to my preview trip on the Disney Fantasy. But before we actually get to this week's tip, we kind of have an add-on to last week's tip. Steve wrote in and said, here's an additional tip. We had the 4-day park adventure followed by a 3-day Disney cruise, and I suggest that you consolidate your luggage before the cruise as suggested and leave the extra luggage in the car, van, or checked someplace before the cruise, and don't haul your dirty clothes onto the cruise. Steve, definitely a good addition there if you're planning on doing the parks and then going on the cruise. Certainly no point in bringing dirty clothes onto the ship if you're just going to be lugging them on and then lugging them back off. So good tip there. Continuing with a new tip tip now related to the Disney Cruise Line. Once again, Jennifer chimes in and says, we found that it's not widely advertised, though it's not widely advertised, Cabanas is open on debarkation day for breakfast. The message seems to be to use the dining rooms, but those times are so early. If you had main dining 6:45 in the morning and sit-down dining takes much longer, and with such a packed timeline to depart, I recommend either ordering sandwiches from room service the night before and putting them in the cabin fridge, which we did in large Ziploc bags, or heading to Cabanas if time is a concern. You can check your navigator to confirm if Cabanas is open. We found this out by accident and thought that breakfast was only available in the dining rooms. Jennifer, definitely a good tip there. When I was getting off of the Disney Dream last year, I did go for the sit-down breakfast, which was enjoyable but a bit rushed because I knew I had to get through my food, eat, then go back to the room, pack everything up because I was too lazy to pack the night before, and then get off the ship by the time necessary. So Cabana certainly is a faster way, the buffet service, a faster way to enjoy breakfast, one final meal before you get off of a Disney cruise. Everybody else out there, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net.
Action!
Inside the Magic is proud to welcome you to the Great Movie Review.
Your young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan.
And now it is time for a movie review. The movie being John Carter, which just hit theaters from Walt Disney Studios a couple of days ago. Now, you've probably been hearing about John Carter for entirely too long now. Back at the 2011 D23 Expo, if you were in attendance like I was, during the 2-hour big Walt Disney Studios presentation in the arena, they talked extensively about John Carter. More than an hour into that presentation, it seemed like they were just showing clip after clip of introducing the audience to different characters, and they have brought a lot of the stars up on stage, as well as the director Andrew Stanton of Pixar fame, and in order to introduce everybody to what at one point was called John Carter of Mars, then ultimately shortened to just John Carter. And I'll be completely honest, when I was sitting in that D23 Expo audience, I found John Carter to be incredibly boring, coupled with the uninteresting trailers. The poor marketing that Disney has done. I really had shrugged off this big budget film. A lot of people were comparing it to Star Wars or Prince of Persia or a number of other, Avatar, things like that. But you know what? All of that could not be more wrong. I actually saw John Carter in a preview screening a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was prohibited from sharing my review of this film until the movie came out. So this has been my first opportunity here on the podcast to talk about it. And now I will say officially that I really enjoyed John Carter. It is a good, solid, great, true science fiction film. It's not Star Wars. It's not Gladiator. It's not Prince of Persia. It's not Avatar. It's not really any of those things. John Carter is kind of its own movie. It's actually really entertaining. In fact, I walked out of seeing John Carter, which is a 2-hour-plus movie, and I thought to myself, that was the movie that I wish the Star Wars prequels had been. The Star Wars prequels certainly had their share of issues. They were entertaining, but they weren't great films. And I'm not saying John Carter was a perfect movie. It definitely has its flaws as well, but it was way better than I had anticipated. I went in with very low expectations and came out pleasantly surprised at how good of a movie it is. Of course, John Carter is based on the old book series by Edgar Rice Burroughs of Tarzan fame. The John Carter book series, beginning with The Princess of Mars and working its way from there, is over 100 years old, or around 100 years old. In fact, it's almost exactly 100 years old. That's almost as old as cinema itself. And so much since then has been derived and inspired by this John Carter book series. Science fiction as a genre has certain few sort of books and movies from very long ago, from decades ago, that it looks to as inspiration for the beginnings of it all. Jules Verne certainly has a lot of influence into the world of science fiction, but this book series, John Carter from Edgar Rice Burroughs, has a huge amount of influence over everything that you have seen in the coming out of Hollywood, and it's hard to wrap your head around that concept. When you see John Carter, the film, you're going to think, wow, this looks just like Star Wars, or this looks just like this, but really it's the other way around, because John Carter, the book series, the text, the original, is so much older, and all of those movies took inspiration from that. Just because it took decades and decades for somebody to finally make a movie out of this book series, it makes it very confusing. It looks like this is derivative of those works, whereas it's actually the other way around. Very confusing, but once you kind of get your head around that fact, it makes the movie much more enjoyable. Don't compare it to these other films. Don't think it's just a ripoff of something else. Judge it on its own merit, and I think you will really enjoy it if you are sort of a sci-fi fantasy fan. This movie, John Carter, definitely has likable characters, really enjoyable scenes, interesting creatures, sort of a classic battle between good and evil, and even a love story woven into the entire movie. The main characters really draw you through the whole movie. I found them to be interesting, never eye-rolling or cheesy, or any of the things that happened during the really poor dialogue during the Star Wars prequel. Disney's marketing is really billing John Carter solely as an action movie, and it is so much more than that. It's really missing the majority of the film. There is a good story at heart of John Carter. You kind of have to pay attention to get it, and there are some details along the way that are fuzzy, and you don't quite understand why this is happening and that's happening. And you know what? You almost don't care. It almost doesn't even matter that you don't fully understand maybe the technology behind things, or the mystery, or the things that maybe will be explained in a future film. Really at the crux of what John Carter is sort of the connection between cultures and, from different planets, obviously. John Carter is from Earth, and that's where the movie starts, which is, maybe a surprise to a lot of people, because the way Disney's been marketing the film, you wouldn't know that John Carter is a Civil War era military captain who ends up in some trouble, finds his way transporting himself somehow, stumbles across this thing and appears on Mars, and you kind of go along with him for the ride, sort of figuring things out along the way. But from Disney's marketing of this film, you would never know that is at the heart of the story. You would just think it's Prince of Persia in space, for lack of a better description. That's what so many people are comparing it to. If you want to see a bit about what the Earthbound part of John Carter is like, you can visit InsideTheMagic.net. Actually, go to our YouTube channel, where I've posted a 10-minute clip that Disney supplied of the Earth portion of John Carter to really set up the story. It's really very, very much the beginning of the film, almost exactly the beginning of the film. So you're not really spoiling anything, but it could really get you into what the movie is all about. Now, I will say that the first 30 or so minutes of John Carter can get a little bit tedious. There's a lot of character introductions there, and those are the clips that they showed off at the D23 Expo. And it's kind of dull at that point, because you're introduced to this character and that character and this character, and after a while you're just like, I kind of want something to happen. I don't really care about character introductions, but fortunately, once it moves past all of that introductory stage, you really get the rest of the movie that's very, very entertaining. There's a lot of cultural differences in there. As I said, there's a romance story to be found, and there is indeed action as well to be found throughout the film, which is set in its majority, once it gets past Earth, it is set on Mars, which in the world of John Carter is known as Barsoom. If you've ever read that term, that name, that is what Mars is. Those who live on Mars call it Barsoom. Just, different culture, different names, different language, etc. The action sequences once you are on Barsoom or Mars are fun. There's a lot of, guns, lasers, projectiles, flying craft, land and air, and not in space. It's not like TIE fighters and all of that from Star Wars, but it is fun to see all of what happens on Mars. That sort of the action enhances the story. It's really driven on this rather simple story, actually, of sort of this battle to save a planet from the bad guys. There's good guys, and there's bad guys, and there's in-between guys, and you're in this alien universe with a lot of creatures, and it's just kind of fun to go along for the ride. I wouldn't say it's an intellectual movie by any means, but it is an entertaining movie that certainly can be enjoyed. I saw it in 3D, and I would say don't bother. The 3D added absolutely nothing to this film. Some movies look great in 3D. This one didn't really make a difference, so I wouldn't worry about that. Another complaint, a loose complaint I had about John Carter is that it took a while to get used to some of the names and terms that they were throwing around. For instance, there's the word Jeddak that they use very early in the movie and continue to use throughout the film, and it took a very long time for me to understand that Jeddak was not a person's name, but rather sort of a description of somebody, like a chief or a head of a tribe or something like that. So, things like that you have to get used to, but that's kind of the nature of sci-fi. You can sort of find your way into this other world, into this other language, and figure it out as you go along, and then on multiple viewings you'll understand it even better. Throughout the movie, the acting was all right. It was not spectacular, but it wasn't bad either. I think Taylor Kitsch did a good job as John Carter. Lynn Collins, who is very beautiful, was not great as Deja, John Carter's love interest. She was a bit... maybe the character, I don't know. It was a bit one-dimensional, one-note of a character, but certainly this, perhaps this generation's version of Princess Leia, I don't know. That might be taking it a little bit too far, but it's certainly an interesting character, if a bit one-note. There were also plenty of computer-generated characters from a certain race of aliens there, played by some very talented actors who you don't see on screen, but definitely hear, and they do a good job with that. Willem Dafoe, Samantha Morton, and Thomas Hayden Church supply voices and motion capture roles there as well. Really, to summarize this whole thing, as I said, I went into John Carter with extremely low expectations, and I came out very, very eager to see the next John Carter movie, if there is one. And I say if there is one because that's going to depend on how successful this film is at the box office and ultimately in home release as well, and that's completely up to you. I do encourage you to look past the trailers, the posters, the clips. They do not do this film justice. It is not the greatest film I've ever seen, but it is a solid sci-fi/fantasy film that I truly enjoyed, and I do want to see another movie, and I hope it does well at the box office, and I hope you can ignore all of the months and months of bad-mouthing of this film and really give it a shot. It is the story here really has served as the inspiration for decades of fantasy and sci-fi, and to see it turned into a big-budget Hollywood film is a good thing. It's rated PG-13, definitely appropriate for a lot of people of many, many ages. There's nothing, not a lot of swearing and nudity or anything like that. It's really just a little, bit of violence is probably why it got the PG-13 rating. So it's just a fun movie that I found to be quite enjoyable. And along those notes, before we wrap up talking about John Carter here, I wanted to mention that John Carter, if you are an Apple fan, John Carter was dedicated to Steve Jobs, who, of course, recently passed away. Wasn't it for any reason in particular other than the fact that this was the most recent big movie to come out of Disney, it is just that, the most recent big movie to come out of Disney, and director Andrew Stanton, of course, who has worked closely with Steve Jobs in the world of Pixar. He had directed Finding Nemo and WALL-E as well, and he just wanted to sort of pay tribute to Steve Jobs with in the credits of this film. So just a little footnote there. And if you are still unsure about John Carter, I also had a note submitted by Adam in Atlanta, who let me know that the John Carter books are so old at this point that they are actually in public domain. So if you don't want to go out and see the movie, or maybe you want to read them before seeing the movie, you can actually download them for free online, which is a good note. And finally, if you're still unsure about John Carter, you just don't know, you don't want to waste your money seeing it, you can actually go see it for free through an ongoing Amazon offer. There's a list of DVDs that you can purchase on Amazon for $8, $9, $10 each. And if you buy one of those, you can actually get a ticket to go see John Carter for free. The list includes Tron Legacy, The Rocketeer, the Narnia movies, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, the National Treasure movies, etc. So if you don't have any of those and you were planning on buying it, you might as well check that out on Amazon and then get your free ticket for John Carter as well. I'll go ahead and make that offer this week's featured item/items, so you can go to the show 362 section of this week's show to take advantage of that. And that is all I'm going to say about John Carter. And we do have even more in store for you on this week's show. But before we get to our next main feature here, I do want to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you have a business to promote, maybe you're attending a convention, going to school, going to a church, you need to wear name tags around your neck or an ID card. Wearing it on a lanyard is a great way to do it, and customizing the lanyard is even better. And you can do just that over at lanyardlab.com. Click on Get a Quote, and you can submit to us all of your details, your text, logos, colors, whatever you want to put on the lanyards. We'll email you back with a price quote along with a proof showing you what your lanyards will look like. And from there, you can buy it online. It is as easy as that, so check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com. So a lot was happening all over Orlando this week. Obviously, I had quite a bit of news at the top of the show, and now we're talking about John Carter hitting theaters. But now back to the topic of theme parks, where we're actually going to stray a bit from Disney's theme parks over to Universal Orlando, though I promise you there are some very strong Disney tie-ins here. And I am speaking specifically about the grand reopening of the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, the really, really excellent ride at the Islands of Adventure theme park at Universal Orlando. They have added new 4K high-definition projections that are just absolutely jaw-droppingly clear. They look fantastic. Detailed computer renderings, new lighting, new scenery. The ride just looks better than ever. It looks like a brand-new ride, even though it's about, 12, 13 years old now? I think it is 13 years old, which is, I mean, when you ride through it now, it looks amazing. The queue has been spruced up to look all nice and dusted and repainted and re-detailed. And they held a big reopening ceremony. Well, I wouldn't say big. It was kind of a reopening moment this week. So I'm not going to share that with you right now. But what I do want to share with you is head over just after the reopening. I had a chance to talk to a pair of Universal Creatives designers, one of which is a former Disney Imagineer. In fact, much of this Spider-Man attraction was designed by former Imagineers, and I said there would be a Disney tie-in here. It's always interesting to see when these designers sort of hop from one company to the next and have a chance to show their expertise at a different company. In addition, of course, Disney owns Marvel now, which they didn't at the time when the Spider-Man ride first opened in the late 90s, which is an interesting twist to this whole thing. You know, why is Universal renovating and, not expanding, but enhancing an attraction that is shows characters that are owned by a competing company? Well, I asked just that along with many other questions to this pair of very talented designers, and I do want to bring you over to moments after the official reopening of the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man at Islands of Adventure for an interview with these two great designers, and I will let them introduce themselves for you.
My name is Eric Parr. I'm the Senior Director of Creative Design. I was basically some creative direction on this particular attraction. Early on, I was one of the original creators doing show set design.
I'm Thierry Coup, and I'm Senior Vice President of the Creative Studio for Universal. I was also involved with Eric on the very first Spider-Man, and involved with this one as well on the creative direction.
Okay, so you said you were there at the very beginning of Spider-Man, and now we are, more than 10 years later since it first opened. When you ride through now versus when you rode through the first time, what's the difference in the feeling of experiencing it?
It's a familiar story, definitely, but it's just much, much better. It's really more intense. I mean, you've got a lot more color, you've got a lot more saturation and detail, you've got a lot more sound, and the motion is just incredible. The new programming of the vehicle and the way that it's timed with the new media, it's really, really a great combination of things coming together.
So tell me a little bit about what the new elements are specifically. I know there's new screens, new sound. What did it take to bring all that to the ride?
Well, Eric and I dreamed up some really great things about 13 years ago when we were designing the first ride. And we're not able to get all those things in front of our guests because the technology didn't exist. The projection systems, the 4K high definition, and then the tools to create the CG animation, to be able to add all this incredible depth, put all those elements, see all those little details like, the stitching on Spider-Man's gloves when he points at us in the first scene, and seeing all this incredible flaming pumpkins almost touching your nose, and every character comes to life in a way we only dreamt about years ago. And it's so wonderful to do that. This time, we always felt this was a breakthrough when it first opened, but now it's definitely blending the lines between virtual and reality. This is the ultimate ride.
So was it a technology reason for revamping the ride now? Do you felt like, okay, now we have reached that point where we couldn't do the things that we wanted to, or was there a bigger reason to, sort of reintroduce Spider-Man to the world?
Well, go ahead.
Well, we wanted to make Spider-Man better just because. We just thought it was a great time to do it. And it wasn't about technology or anything else. It was just that we already knew it was a great attraction, but why not make it even better? And if we could, we would do that. And so that's what we decided to do. So it's great. We're really behind Spider-Man. We really love that character. And we just wanted to go for it just one more time.
Yeah. Well, I see you're holding the new Spider Vision 3D glasses. Can you tell me a little bit about what's new and enhanced with the projections and then the glasses as well?
Sure. The projection system is all 4K digital high definition, which is 4,000 pixels vertically. It's really, really high detail. And then one of the secrets is the 3D technology that goes with this, the Infotech 3D glasses, which are this optical glass with dichroic filters. It gives you incredible sharpness, clarity, contrast. There's no more of the old ghosting effect you used to get with the old polarization. Makes it much easier to watch, and overall can push the 3D even further.
Are those active shutter glasses, or are they still a passive technology?
They're actually passive. They use a very specific system that literally just came out very recently. That's why, this is perfect timing for us to be able to introduce this new technology.
Of course, riding through, I just rode the ride, and it's been fantastic for years, but it's even more fantastic now. And I was looking out for Stan Lee to appear here and there. I spotted him twice. How did that sort of idea come together? Obviously, Stan Lee is the father of Spider-Man. At what point did you approach him and say, hey, we want to put you in the ride?
Well, Stan Lee was definitely our inspiration. He was the creator originally, and he has made so many cameo appearances in the films, Marvel films. For us, it was essential to bring him to the ride, to the fans, and have him be part of this. Without him, there would be no Spider-Man. So it's so cool to have him. He's in 3 of the scenes, but you really have to look for him. And it's one of the fun things. You just come and ride this multiple times and you'll find him.
Well, I'll definitely have to ride again because I only spotted him twice, so it sounds like I missed one. Now, towards the end of the ride, I felt like some of the scenes were even more updated than maybe the beginning ones as you're sort of flying with Spider-Man through the New York streets. Are some of those, I guess, individual shots as you move through, are they completely new? Are they totally different than what they were before?
Yeah, each shot is completely new. Some of the geometries that are inside of each one did stay because they have to merge with the sets. There's a practical merging area that we definitely have to have. But most of the scenes, they were totally new scenes, new lighting. Obviously, because you can actually see a lot more into it now, so we had to add more stuff because it would seem plain if you didn't. So There was a lot of opportunity there for us to take advantage of, and we did.
One more question, of course. In recent years, another competitor of yours purchased Marvel. It's a lot are wondering what's the future of Marvel at Universal. It seems like Spider-Man and the rest of the Marvel superhero island is now, here to stay. It's not at any risk of going anywhere.
Yeah, everything we have here is under a licensing agreement, which allows us to continue, using these wonderful characters and, do what we do today, just make things even better. Yeah.
So it's all about just regardless of who owns the properties, it's about bringing that great guest experience.
Completely. We're completely behind these characters. They are so wonderful. There's such great appeal to our guests, our audiences. So we're gonna keep those characters for as long as we can. So.
So there you have it, hearing from a pair of the designers of The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, and clearly the fact that Disney now owns Marvel has no bearing, at least for the moment, on Spider-Man or any of the other Marvel characters being over there at Universal Orlando. It is just a simple matter of licensing agreement, and that has enabled Universal to continue to really enjoy having these characters there and continue to, well, now that they've improved one of the best dark rides around, one of the best really theme park rides around for so many years. It is certainly one of my favorite attractions, the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. If you've never been over there, it is definitely an attraction to see, particularly now with the upgraded projections, the upgraded sound, seating, lighting, the new glasses, as you mentioned, the dichroic 3D glasses, the same type of glasses they use on the new Star Tours. They really help in enjoying the whole 3D element because of the newer technology. You know, the old polarization, as Thierry Coup mentioned there, offered some ghosting, so where double image where you see the left and the right and vice versa when you're not supposed to. You know, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great either. The new dichroic 3D really eliminates that. It has a nice, bright, crisp, clear visual that you can have throughout the whole thing, and the whole ride has really been sort of rethemed with more detail than ever. Not so much the bright cartoony look as before, but certainly a lot of really wonderful visuals, and everything just looks fantastic. So if you've enjoyed the Spider-Man ride in the past, you'll definitely like it even more now, and if you've never had a chance to see it, then I do encourage you to go check it out, because it is one fantastic ride. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Epcot Flower and Garden Festival had started up very recently, and of course the Flower Power concert series and all of that, and I wanted to share a bit more about the Flower and Garden Festival, but it's not going to come from me personally. This week I want to try something new. We've got a new contributor here on Inside the Magic. I was approached by a listener named Maggie. She's a 16-year-old from here in Florida, frequents the parks quite often, and she wanted to offer her thoughts to everybody on what the Flower and Garden Festival is all about from her own perspectives, and even a few tips for really enjoying the festival as well and making the most of it. So with that said, I do want to turn our attention here over to Maggie and see what she has to say.
Hello, Inside the Magic viewers and listeners. My name is Maggie Cambron. I'm 16 years old, from here in Central Florida, and a huge Disney-obsessed fan. I'm not here to talk about how obsessed I am with Disney. If that was the case, this video will be longer than all the Lord of the Rings movies combined. I'm here to talk about the Flower Garden Festival at Epcot. If you're clueless when I say Flower and Garden Festival, let me explain what it is to you. The Flower Garden Festival is how Disney blooms into spring each year. Extra topiaries, displays, presentations from HGTV, themed weekends, tours, and even a concert series throughout this time. Definitely go to one of the HGTV presentations. I'm not one to watch HGTV all the time because I'm really busy, but it's actually really interesting to watch. Genevieve Porter is going to be there from Dear Genevieve. There's someone new about every 3 days throughout the whole entire time, and the list of people who come is insane. Pixie Hollow area, which is my favorite area. Not just because I'm a Tinkerbell fan, that it's actually a really beautiful scenic area where they create all these little houses for each little fairy. Last year they did this really neat little boat made out of like stones and leaves, and a hot air balloon made out of moss and sticks. It's actually quite beautiful to see. The playground that they add on each year, that's also really cool, and it's meant for ages 2 to 8, but it should be 2 to 16 because it's that awesome. There's a new display called Hades Garden of Many Colors, where it's a garden that lights up at night. It's a 20-minute tea garden tour in England where they show you all the tea leaves that they grow and planted there in England. And you get to try out 12 different types of teas, like pure peppermint, Earl Grey, organic green tea. And the best part, it is free. It sounds like a crazy concept at Disney that something is free, but it is. There is also the concert series still. This is honestly probably the most eclectic group of artists they've ever had. There is the ELO Orchestra, which I'm very excited for because I'm a clarinet orchestra geek. Now let me give you some tips just from personal experience that make your time at the Flower Garden Festival even more enjoyable and more fun. Bring plenty, by plenty I mean plenty of wet wipes. Yes, wet wipes. Even if you don't have any kids with you, bring them anyway. Because with the Flower and Garden Festival, there's extra dirt and soil lying around, and all these extra herbs and gardens and organic stuff that somehow has some gooey, sticky stuff on it. And little kids love gooey, sticky stuff they can put their fingers in, and love to spread it around everywhere. And sometimes that gooey, sticky stuff that little kid likes to spread everywhere gets on your white shirt like it does on mine. So make sure you bring extra wet wipes because it's just easy and useful. Go during the morning. The morning is the best time to go because it's not too humid, it's not too hot, it's less crowded, it's more peaceful and relaxing. And my last tip is something my family likes to do each year, and hopefully your family would like to do it too, is taking some nice family pictures at Disney during this time. Now, I know you already take nice family pictures during Disney no matter what time of year you go or where you go at Disney. But this is when the park is at its best. Girls just wear some nice little semi-formal dress or a skirt. Guys just wear a nice shirt or some pants or shorts. And take some nice family pictures. Hope you found something useful and something to do during the Flower and Garden Festival. Love doing this, and hopefully I'll get to do it soon. Thanks for listening.
And thanks very much to Maggie for supplying that Flower and Garden Festival report. I want to know, everybody out there, if you enjoyed Maggie's report from the festival. Want to hear more from her perspective on things, being, well, she's a girl. I'm not. It's good to have a female voice here on the show. And somebody a bit younger in the teens as well. If you want to hear more from her, send me an email. Let me know what you thought on her segment on the Flower and Garden Festival.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
All right, no surprise, we're already over an hour here on the show, but I do want to get to some listener feedback because, as usual, I have an absurd amount of it. So many emails, and I highly doubt I will be getting through all of them this week, but let's just jump right into it and see what we can do here. The most interesting email that I received this week was from somebody named Mark, and Mark wrote, I remember reading stuff about the Transformers on your blog. I just came across this video that was leaked about the new Transformers ride and thought you might dig it. If you post it, will you mention me? And Mark sent me a link to a video that was called Kids Sneaking Into the Transformers Ride. Of course, the ride being the one that's being constructed over at Universal Studios Hollywood in California. And the video appeared to show, sort of a vertical iPhone-style video shot, very shaky, going through. Seemed like a couple of teenagers sneaking into the ride and taking a look at some of the props and the queue, and then ultimately security yelling at them to get out, and then they ran away. And, well, you can see it over at InsideTheMagic.net and decide for yourself, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it was really somebody from Universal Hollywood sending that video out. It seems to be a bit of viral marketing, if you will. It's still a fun video that definitely takes you inside the construction of the Transformers ride out in California at Universal Studios. I don't think it's actually anybody sneaking in, and with that, I must say I don't encourage anybody to ever sneak into a construction site. They are construction sites for a reason. They could be quite dangerous. So even if this was real, it would not be a good thing. But regardless, if you want to see a bit of what Transformers is shaping up to look like out at Universal Studios Hollywood, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net and check it out. All right, next to a real email. This one is from Lorenzo from Maine, who writes, my wife and I take our family to Orlando every spring to the Worlds, and this time we would venture to the dark side. Since our kids are getting a little older, we might check out Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. My wife loves the nighttime shows and parades. Do you know if Universal has announced a more definitive date for the new Superstar Parade or for Cinematic Spectacular? Lorenzo, no. Unfortunately, spring in general is only what Universal has said so far. And so we're just going to have to wait and see at this point exactly when the parade and the new nighttime World of Color like fountain projection show will be debuting. I'll certainly let everybody know as soon as an opening date for either is announced, but nothing at the moment. Next email from Jonathan, who writes, I will be coming back to Walt Disney World at the end of April for 2 weeks and I'll be staying at All Star Movies. And right now, I don't think they offer Wi-Fi. I will be bringing an iPad 2 with me, so I wonder what is the easiest way to connect to the internet at the resort. I have an Airport Express. Would this allow me to connect if I plug the Airport Express into the Ethernet and pay for the Walt Disney World internet? Would that make the connection wireless to work with the iPad? Jonathan, a very technical question, and I think you've got it right there. I'm pretty sure the Airport Express can act as a little wireless hub of sorts if you plug it into Ethernet, but I'm not 100% sure, unfortunately. I do have an Airport Express, but I only use it for sort of streaming music over, the wireless connection, so I'm not totally sure if it functions like that. I think you'd have to ask an Apple genius to be sure. Maybe if you surf around on the Apple webpage, it'll tell you that. But there is an increasing number of Wi-Fi hotspots available around Walt Disney World. I think I read just a couple of days ago that Pop Century now has Wi-Fi as well as wired internet. And you could always hop over, if you absolutely had to one of the hotels that has it available for you and use it then, and then just go back to your room. I know that's not nearly as convenient, but that may be the way to go. So unfortunately, I can't say for sure, but I think you have it right. So I know that's not very helpful, but that's the only answer that I have. All right, next, an email from Alex, who writes, when checking out the area between It's a Small World and the Haunted Mansion at the Magic Kingdom with satellite view of Google Maps, it became apparent that this area is not at all huge, but rather squeezed in between the two large show buildings. While there's certainly more space than there just for a restroom, it's probably unrealistic to hope for a major attraction at this location. Alex, yeah, I think you're right. We had previously talked about that area that's under construction now, the former Skyway building area, and there's definitely not enough room there for a full, huge attraction, but you could fit something more than just restrooms there, whether it's a meet and greet or a small interactive something or other. It definitely has some room there, but we're not sure exactly what's going in there quite yet. Next, emails from Danielle, who writes, let's see. First of all, I completely blame your podcast for fueling my Disney World addiction. Since listening to your podcast, I have a hard time going longer than 6 months in between Disney trips. Anyway, we're currently planning our next trip, either April or May, and I had a quick question. If we stay in a house or a condo instead of a Disney resort, do you have any advice on parking? I know Disney parking is a little expensive, especially if we're going to hop from park to park. Would we be allowed to park once and use Disney transportation to hop from park to park? And if so, where is the best place to leave our car? Well, Danielle, once you pay for parking once during the day, you don't have to keep paying repeatedly. If you keep your pass with you, you can move your car around to the different theme parks. With that said, maybe you don't want to do that. You can certainly, park at one of the parks that'll be open the latest and allowing you the most transportation options there. Let's say Magic Kingdom's open till midnight one night. Well, you can park at the Transportation and Ticket Center, take the monorail to Epcot or to Magic Kingdom, take the buses over to Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom, and from there you can always make sure that you can get all the way back to your car at the end of the day. Of course, at the end of the day, everybody's trying to do the same thing, and transportation can be a bit of a nightmare with lots of people lined up for buses and monorails, etc. So for me, I just like driving from place to place. It's the easiest way that I found. Disney transportation is useful. It's great. The buses work and the monorails are convenient, but they're not the speediest. You do have to wait and then ride them. So I just recommend driving your car everywhere. Next, an email from Matt, who writes, I'm planning a trip to Walt Disney World in July. We'll be staying on property. I have a question about extra magic hours. I intend to be at each park at opening for each day of the trip and to get on all the e-ticket rides early, but for lighter crowds, is it better to pick parks with the morning extra magic hours or choose a park which doesn't, hoping that it will be quiet since many flock to the extra magic hours? Matt, definitely a great question. It sounds like you've really thought about your routine, your schedule there, and you're right. Parks with extra magic hours tend to have more people in them throughout the day than the ones that don't. With that said, during those extra magic hours, the crowds are very, very light. So it depends on what you want to do for the day. Maybe you could go to the park with extra magic hours, hit as many rides as you can in the morning. Then by 11, 12 o'clock, when it starts to get busier, you can then hop to a different park that didn't have extra magic hours or doesn't, and then enjoy the rest of the day in that park. That would be my recommendation. Next up, an email from Dave who writes, let's see, I have a question for you. I'm currently a college student, and my family and I are visiting Orlando during my spring break. I'm also taking one of my friends who will be visiting the area for the very first time. My family and I are not strangers to Orlando, but my friend is, and I really want to make this experience a very memorable one for good reasons. The problem being much of Walt Disney World is directed toward children and adults with children. What are some things you can suggest to young adults, i.e. college students ages 18 to 21, to do or see at Walt Disney World, Islands of Adventure, and Universal? Dave, definitely an excellent question. It's hard to answer that question because I don't know if the people you're bringing with you are big Disney fans or not. If they are, they'll appreciate everything. Certainly Magic Kingdom and even the rides that many people call, children's rides. Disney fans love them all. If they're not big Disney fans, you might want to do more of Hollywood Studios, more of, Epcot. If everybody is 21, you can certainly partake in a few things that require you to be 21 around there. Hop around downtown Disney, do some shopping. Islands of Adventure is a great park for college students. A lot of thrill rides there. As I was talking about earlier, Spider-Man's a great ride. Of course, Wizarding World of Harry Potter is there. Universal Orlando has some great thrill rides as well as some, dark rides and other ones as well. So those are sort of the areas that I would focus in on. That's not to say that the Magic Kingdom isn't for everyone as well. It certainly is an area that, or a park that everybody can enjoy. I mean, Space Mountain, Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain, all big rides that are a lot of fun. I love the Haunted Mansion, obviously my favorite, and you never know what people are going to like until you bring them there, and it may be that they show up there and sure they want maybe want to steer clear of Peter Pan and Snow White and Fantasyland attractions, but take it to the bigger rides and the great classic attractions, and they may enjoy it just as much. Next up, an email from Alex who writes, do you think it's justifiable that Disney keeps charging ridiculous prices for Disneyland Resort tickets even though a lot of stuff is shut down with construction? I know you noticed that the entrance to California Adventure is blocked and you only have one small entrance to get around. What are your thoughts? Well, Alex, you do have a point that there are a lot of construction walls going on around California Adventure. Of course, all that is going to be wrapping up within the next 3 months or so. But I don't think Disney needs to reduce their prices. The majority of their experiences are still there. Just because you're having to walk around an area that has construction walls doesn't mean you're really missing anything. Disney sort of has this list of attractions that you get when you enter a park, and the majority of those, in fact, and probably more so than ever, are available at the Disneyland Resort now. California Adventure is a better park than it ever has been, even while still under construction or renovation. So no, I don't think. Yes, the prices are high. I agree with that. But are they ridiculous? Should they be lowered just because of the construction? No, I don't think so. I think the experience as a whole and the attractions that are available are still entirely enjoyable. And next email comes from Sarah, who writes, let's see, I lost my place. There it is. I am staying at the Treehouse Villas for the first time in October, and I'm wondering how the bus service works. Has any listener stayed there and can offer insight? And also, are there any known plans for October 1st for Epcot Center's big day? Well, Sarah, bus service at Treehouse Villas, I imagine, works just like bus service anywhere else. There's a bus stop that you can go to, and you can climb on the bus and go wherever you need to. It's fairly centrally located right near many of the other resorts, very close to downtown Disney, just down the road from Hollywood Studios, and of course everything else is a little bit further away. But I don't think you would have to worry about having any problems hopping on a bus. You might have to wait a while because that's just the case with the Walt Disney World buses regardless of where you are, but that's the way it goes. And as far as plans for October 1st, that rolls around every year. It's a Walt Disney World anniversary, Epcot anniversary, many other anniversaries, and no, Disney hasn't said anything particularly interesting about October 1st this year. Next email from Lee from the UK, who writes, I have a quick question. What is the best restaurant to watch the Magic Kingdom fireworks from? Is it best to book a restaurant in the park or a nearby Disney hotel? I've heard the California Grill and Narcoossee's are both great viewing points. Lee, if you're looking to eat and watch the Magic Kingdom fireworks, you definitely don't want to do anything at the Magic Kingdom. Crystal Palace is probably the only restaurant that has, well, even then, you're inside. You really can't book a restaurant and sit in the restaurant and watch the fireworks at the Magic Kingdom. There are a lot of outdoor seating areas around the Tomorrowland Terrace and some others by sort of the waterways, etc., where you could bring food to, maybe from Casey's, but none of them are really worth booking. However, like you said, the California Grill at the top of the Contemporary, definitely an excellent place to watch the fireworks from there. While you're eating in there, you can step outside onto this great balcony, and you can watch the fireworks up there as well. That would certainly be my recommendation for probably the best place to watch the fireworks from a restaurant at Walt Disney World. Though over at the Polynesian, you certainly get a great beach there, and yeah. So there you go. I would say go with the I keep saying Grand Californian, the California Grill. It's going to be good food for sure, and you'll enjoy the view as well. Let's look ahead, see how many more emails. Oh boy, we still have a lot more emails to go. Let's just keep on going. Maybe we'll get through all of them. Who knows? Next is from Ashley from England, who writes, I just thought I'd answer a question that was asked recently about Dumbo being closed and the Magic Carpets of Aladdin having a refurbishment at the same time. That refurbishment has been delayed due to Dumbo being closed longer than anticipated, so at least there will be at least one will be open for families with children looking to ride this type of ride. Also, on the topic of underrated attractions from a few weeks ago, I'd go with PhilharMagic. Hardly ever a queue for it, and it is a great show. Me and a fellow listener, Adam, will be heading back over at the end of April for 2 weeks and planning on every ride and show. Easy feat. Ashley, thanks very much for that. I didn't even think about it when I was answering that question about Dumbo and the Magic Carpets, but you're right. The Magic Carpets are up and running at the moment, even though Dumbo is closed for the moment. So you're right. They kind of staggered them. As far as the attraction, PhilharMagic, good point. Great attraction, great 3D movie, probably the best 3D movie at Walt Disney World property. Mickey's PhilharMagic in Fantasyland, Magic Kingdom, definitely a fun attraction. Next email is from Chris, who writes, I'm a musician and I love to check out Mulch, Sweat, and Shears over at Hollywood Studios. My girl and I go to Disney 3 times a year and always try to stop by Hollywood Studios to see them. They are just amazing and always a great time to see. What do you know about them? Were they put together just for the show, or were they a real band before Disney? Just curious. Would love that job. Also just sailed the Disney Dream for the first time, and wow, what a trip, and proposed to my girl in front of Belle on the last night. What a great time. Belle had no idea. Gotta love it. And you know what? He Chris sent me a picture of that moment, which I'm going to, just hang on, I'm queuing it up now. For those of you watching the video version of the show, I'm going to put up the picture of that engagement moment aboard the Disney Dream. Definitely cute. The amazingly surprised look on the face of Belle as she was standing there watching the proposal aboard the ship. Definitely one of those magical Disney moments. So congratulations for that. With regards to Mulch, Sweat, and Shears, I am not terribly familiar with their history in the park. I'm pretty sure that band is one that was formed from other musicians for the park. I don't think Mulch, Sweat, and Shears existed outside of the park, but they very well certainly are a talented group of musicians that are just kind of brought together from other local bands, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So certainly those musicians have other responsibilities outside of the park, as generally is the case when it comes to performance, talent acts in the parks, but certainly an enjoyable group there. Next email from Bobby. He writes, I'm going down to the Magic Kingdom for one more Disney day. This seems to be an old email that I probably should have read a few weeks ago. I'll go ahead and read it anyway, even though this advice is probably far too late at this point. Anyway, Bobby continues, thinking about hanging around downtown Disney, maybe the boardwalk. If I am not staying on property, where can I park my car to visit the Epcot Resorts area? Well, Bobby, sorry for not getting to your email sooner, but just for anyone else wondering the same question, to visit the Epcot Resorts area, if you're planning on actually going to the boardwalk, you can absolutely go there and park. Just let them know you're there to dine or shop or whatever it is, and they will let you park there. Same with downtown Disney and really any of the hotels. If you have a reason for being there, you don't have to worry about it. You can definitely park there, and you can even leave your car there for a while. If you're planning on, hopping from here to there, you shouldn't leave it there all day. You shouldn't park at the resorts and then go to the theme parks. At least Disney doesn't want you to do that. But you can definitely, as a visitor to the hotels, you're still allowed to do that. So it's as simple as that. Looks like we're getting close to the end of the emails. Might as well just keep on going here, and that way we can be completely caught up. Next is from Natalie from Maryland, who writes, I really enjoyed listening to your coverage a few episodes back of your stealth visit to Disneyland Park. I'm planning a visit for late this year, and any information that you give on good attractions, food, and music at Disneyland is well noted. On a side note, I remember hearing a recent listener question asking about any good sources of information for predicting crowd levels in the parks. I recommend touringplans.com. It uses complicated algorithms to project crowd levels months in advance, historical crowd levels by day, takes into account things as special events and extra magic hours, also rates food in the parks and attractions, and there's an app for all of that. And by the way, I prefer your podcast to theirs. Anyway, continuing on. Now for the question. I have always been a big fan of the cartoon Gargoyles, and I was wondering if there's ever been an attraction in Disney parks that was Gargoyles themed. Do you know of any games, etc., that exist that can supplement my obsession with this old show? Well, Natalie, definitely a good point and a good question there. With regards to touring plans or really any of the other unofficial apps that claim to, predict crowd levels, they do use a lot of historical data and are surprisingly accurate for those things. Of course, Disney now has Mobile Magic, officially the free app for iPhone, for Android, and you can get that and get the official down-to-the-minute wait times for crowds when you were there in the parks. So whether you want to go with an official one or unofficial one, you can kind of make that distinction on your own. With regards to Gargoyles, unfortunately, I haven't heard a lot about the Gargoyles in a long time. Yeah, that was an old cartoon, sort of Disney afternoon era there, and I don't think there was ever an attraction or anything much in the parks related to Gargoyles. There were some Disney afternoon things, going on in the parks, especially at Disneyland during sort of the early mid-90s, but you're definitely not going to find anything Gargoyles related now, unfortunately. Next email from Christina, who writes, my cousins and her boys, ages 17, 9, and 9, is coming down, and I will be her hostess with the mostest. And we will be squeezing in almost all the theme parks in the span of 4 days. My question is, in the Magic Kingdom, can we bring in food? We were planning on making sandwiches and soda and store it in the lockers. Do they still have lockers? Otherwise, we were just going to leave it in the car and eat it there. And since my mother-in-law works for them, we have a one-day hopper. I was thinking of Animal Kingdom in the morning and the rest of the day at the Magic Kingdom. Will it be crowded? Well, Christina, as I just mentioned, as far as the crowds, there are a number of utilities that you can use to determine crowd levels and get an idea of what that will be. As far as I can't tell you for sure one way or the other, but yeah, you can bring in a little bit of food into the park. I bring in drinks into the park all the time. It's it's important to have what you need to survive a day in the parks, so shouldn't be a problem there. Just a couple of more emails here, and we will wrap up. And by a couple of more, I mean 5. So let's jump right into them. Let's see. Cinda writes in and says, we just moved to Kissimmee a couple months ago and bought annual passes for Disney World right away. My question is there an internet website that reports park crowd levels or line wait times at no charge? Well, and the distinction here, of course, is that she's asking for a website that is looking for wait times rather than an app like Disney's Mobile Magic. So in this case, I would refer you to something like touringplans.com, where you can get access to that type of information. It's unofficial information, but it is very good at getting the very, very accurate. So that's what I would recommend there. Next email from RJ. He writes a quick question about the Disney water parks, wondering which of the two parks you would suggest at Walt Disney World and why. My wife and I will be visiting Disney World in September of this year and are planning on having a water park day in the middle of our week. So, RJ, I personally like Typhoon Lagoon better than Blizzard Beach. I was just at Blizzard Beach a few days ago, and it's fun, but after you go on the slides a few times, you kind of run out of things to do, whereas Typhoon Lagoon seems to have more areas to just relax on. Has the great big wave pool, which is one of my favorite features of any water park, and it's far superior to the wave pool at Blizzard Beach. And so, yeah, out of the two, I would say go for Typhoon Lagoon. Also worth noting here is RJ wanted me to give a shout out to Court Sharp because he also listens to the show. So there it is. Next up, an email from Keith, who writes, some listeners of Inside the Magic may also be fans of the Pets Ahoy show at SeaWorld, and if any of them have been there in the past few months, you may have noticed that one of the stars of the show, Apollo, a young Great Dane, has been replaced with a new Great Dane named Barley. Have no fear, the trainers and vets at SeaWorld decided it was in Apollo's best interest to retire him from the show and find a family for him to live with. Rest assured that Apollo is happy and healthy, living with my wife, myself, and our other rescued greyhound. Keith, that is fantastic. It's just wonderful to hear. I'm not a big fan of pet shows in the parks, but to hear that animal that was performing in the parks for so long has a great home is wonderful. So thanks very much for that email. Now we're down to just a couple, and these are both D23 related. Marcy simply writes, I'm a new listener to your podcast, and I hear you mention the D23 Club. What is that? Well, Marcy, the D23 Club is Disney's official fan club that they launched a few years ago. You pay to have a membership. There's different levels of membership, a gold and a silver membership. One of them can come with the D23 magazine. The other one, you're just a member, and gives you access to purchase exclusive merchandise for D23. Also gives you access to either attend or buy tickets to attend different events that they hold in Orlando and in California and sometimes around the country as well. There's if you search online, there's certainly a website for D23, and you can find out much more information, but that's it in a nutshell. And final email to be completely caught up on listener feedback here. Matt writes and says, I just saw the post about the dates for the D23 Expo and got really excited, but I was wondering about some things. Here are my questions. Should I become a D23 member? What are the perks, deals, or packages? And should I plan on going to the parks while I'm at the Expo? Well, Matt, I can't say whether or not you should become a D23 member because I don't know where you live. If you live around Anaheim or Los Angeles, or you live in Orlando, you will have much more, or be able to get much more out of a D23 membership than you would if you live anywhere else. That's starting to change. D23 is starting to roll out more events around the country, but for now, the focus, and it probably always will be the focus, is around those two areas where there's more D23 activity because there's a great concentration of Disney fans around the parks in Orlando and in California. With that said, you can still get access to a lot of the things that I just mentioned in response to the previous email, merchandise, etc. And there are some discounts to be had, to be gotten as well as a result of being a D23 member. But ultimately, it is a decision as to whether or not you'll get your, $35 or so worth out of it. And as far as the parks, the D23 Expo is a very, very, very busy schedule. I wouldn't count on having a whole lot of theme park time during the Expo. If you do want to go to the Disneyland parks while you're in the area, you might want to go before or after the Expo. Plan an extra day or two to do that. And with that, we are completely caught up on listener feedback, which means that's it for listener feedback this week.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And that about wraps up show 362 of Inside the Magic. Decided to just go ahead and blast through all the feedback to get fully caught up so we can lead into next week with a clean slate and all the fun that's going to, who knows what comes up this week throughout theme parks and beyond. Certainly a lot cropped up this week from, the Disney Fantasy arriving here in Florida, Spider-Man reopening over in Islands of Adventure, John Carter hitting theaters, Flower and Garden Festival starting, and, a whole lot more news as well. Really looking forward to going out in 3 months to see Cars Land at Buena Vista Street when that debuts at California Adventure, and of course going on the Fantasy in a couple of weeks as well, which will be a whole lot of fun. If you do want to see more about the amazing adventures of Spider-Man over at Islands of Adventure, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net. We do a video of that opening moment, which was very, very short but worth seeing, as well as some additional information and video and photos from what the attraction looks like now that it has reopened with some upgrades. So certainly exciting there. Also, you can read read some additional thoughts and see some that 10-minute clip from John Carter as well. If you're wondering whether or not that movie will be for you, head on over to the website for an even more in-depth review of that. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also, don't forget about that Audible free trial up to 30 days now with access to tens of thousands of audiobooks. Try it all over at audibletrial.com/Inside the Magic. And be sure to visit us over at lanyardlab.com to see all the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can request a price quote today and receive a free digital preview over at lanyardlab.com. And of course, between episodes of this podcast, please visit us over at InsideTheMagic.net. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Just add /InsideTheMagic to all of those to find us there. And on the website, you'll find show notes for each week's podcast, as well as plenty of videos, photos, news, and so much more. So thanks very much to all of you for listening, and for those of you watching either live or on the YouTube show later. Appreciate that as well. So have a magical week. Bye.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, just a dream.